Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Leadership Void podcast. I'm Enrique with my co-host Vince to bring you the best in our veteran, military spouse, and first responder community. And Vince will introduce today's guest.
Hey, absolutely, Enrique. Here we are closing the month of March, which is Women's History Month. What a better person to have. A great patriot, a great individual, a great human being, Shā Sparks. Guess what? She is the CEO of Sparks of Fire International from the greater Palm Bay, Melbourne, and Titusville area. Shā, welcome to the show. Please start off and tell us a little bit about you.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so honored to be, especially at the end of Women's History Month. So thank you for that. I am the Chief Excitement Officer of Sparks of Fire, like you mentioned. I am a speaker. I have host the Power of Investing in People podcast. I am a co-host to Underwired podcast and a guest host on the Real Talk podcast and internet show, I guess is what you call it. I'm the founder of Firestarters book project and an author of How to Get Your Voice Back. So those are the things that I do, but I am also an advocate for veterans and I coach. I'm a certified fearless living coach. I coach and mentor and advocate and do all kinds of fun things.
Well, thank you, Shā. It is nice to see you. Now, we know each other from PodFest and all the things you do for the veteran community throughout this area. And I really appreciate you coming on today and sharing the platform with us. Tell us a little bit more about Sparks of Fire International.
Yeah, so what it is an organization that really helps people find their voice. So whether that's been someone who has experienced trauma, or someone who has really just kind of lost their way. So whether that is in a podcast sharing their story, or it's in a book, writing maybe a chapter in the Firestarters book project, writing a chapter about how they overcome their obstacle that they've been through, or it's with coaching, with one-on-one coaching with me or group coaching with me, to really tap into what they've been through and how they can utilize what they've been to transform that trauma into treasure.
I love it. It kind of correlates with that title, bringing back that spark, that fire you have internally, right? So you give them hope, you give them, definitely love everything you're doing. So Shā, share with us giving back to the community, how that does that look like for you, or share about your entrepreneurship journey, any pearls of wisdoms you like to share with our audience.
Well, let me say that. So I was attending a podcast conference back in 2019 and I met, like 500 people. And on the last day I met this gentleman and he's like, so tell me what you do for your coaching business. And at the time I was focused primarily on women. And I said, I transform trauma into treasure. And he said, oh, have you considered working with veterans? And I said, actually, yes, I have. But it's funny you mentioned that. They keep showing up in my life. I meet them everywhere I go. So it's funny that you say that. And he said, well, I work for Bunker Labs. So Bunker Labs is a startup space for veteran entrepreneurs who want to have an idea and they walk them through an incubator space, kind of an accelerator to get them to invoice. And so I started off with really volunteering with them and working with their Bunker Brews monthly networking events. And I am just amazed at how my dad was a veteran. I am not a veteran, but just how the veteran community has embraced me and how I've embraced them. It was like a natural fit. And so that's kind of how I give back. I work with Bunker Labs. I help veterans, and not just veterans. I help most people, but mostly it seems to be mostly veterans, really help find their purpose. Because I really feel like in that whole transition period from military to civilian life is where the military or the government got it wrong. And I may get slack for that, but it's really about being able to help them find their purpose now that they are out of that controlled environment and being able to work on their own and giving them skills and tools to be able to move forward and to find in their own path rather than being in the confines of being given their path for so many years. and honoring them at the same time.
Well, we definitely appreciate not only you being part of the military family, and a lot of families do not give themselves enough credit. When you are a military child or a military spouse, you are a veteran in sense you may have not been serving in that job and field, MOS or whatever it may be that that service member was doing, but if they were not supported by that military family, those military children, they cannot do their job. And so thank you for doing that. And I'm so happy you were reacquainted with the veteran community because we definitely appreciate you and your work. And now with Sparks of Fire International, you do a lot of things. So what's on the horizon here coming up?
Yeah, so I have the Firestarters book project. We have a new co-author book that's coming out. It is called The Theme. So we go around a theme rather than a target market. So the theme for the first book was how to be a spark of hope in the midst of change. And that came out of, the global, right in the midst of the global pandemic and all the stuff that was happening then. And so to really give people hope that there is something else to look forward to. And then this next theme is how to rekindle your kindness. It seems like with everything that did happen in the last 3 years, is that that's really what the world needs now is more kindness. So we are looking for co-authors who want to share their story, who really want to be a part of something bigger than themselves and leave a legacy for, their kids. Maybe it's their community, maybe be able to leverage this for their business. And then I also have Spark Your Alpha men's group coaching, and we are redefining what alpha actually means. And alpha is an acronym that I really feel like God just came through me, and it stands for awareness, leadership, purpose, hope, and alignment. And that awareness key is so crucial because oftentimes we're focused so much on goals that we forget all of the opportunities that are around us. And so the awareness is not just self-awareness, it's also awareness of opportunities.
I love everything that's going on in the forefront and in the horizon for you and the world, right? Because not only the goal, that reward, you got to focus on the system and that identity that's controlled
Yes.
by all that. So love everything you shared, Shay. Now, how do you continue to have your spark lit and thrive in your professional life?
Well, I was doing this all part-time while I was working full-time in my other business. And in the last year and a half, I retired from that, quote unquote, and really focused. I moved across the country and focused on rejuvenating me and letting me rest and getting to the beach as often as possible to really just get that ocean therapy at sunrise. That I just feel like those are just moments that, it's a new opportunity to start afresh. And so that's really how I refresh myself, spark my own creativity is through rest and through movement. I go on walks looking at water, which, I grew up in the Midwest where I was landlocked. So being able to be surrounded by water and is just really an amazing calming feeling. And not that this means anything, but my astrology sign is a Leo. And so I think the fire in that and the water brings the calmness to me. So yeah, I'd have to say being around the beach, being around the water, being around family, that's what really lights my fire.
And I tell you that scenario there, walking out onto a beach and having the sunrise with a nice cup of coffee for me is ideal. So I'm so glad that you was able to move on to this side of the country and enjoy that for you because we really do need to slow down at times and start to allow ourselves to be rejuvenated. And so I'm glad that you're doing that while you was growing up, say in the household, your dad's service, and in this types of community, you may have learned a thing or two, or even just in the workplace, right? As we grow through corporate America, all these different jobs, and even in your entrepreneurial pursuit, what advice did you receive that you would like to pass on to an emerging leader today?
Well, it's kind of twofold. So my dad was drafted to Korea during the Vietnam War. And I didn't know this story. I thought he had enlisted my whole life. And I didn't know this story until about 6 months before he passed away because he never talked about it, as most people who were from that era didn't, right? And I'm so lucky that he was willing to share part of his story with us. I wish I would have recorded it. Now, looking back, I'm like, dang it. But one of the things that he said hit me so profoundly in very contradicting ways. So he was explaining what happened, and I believe I asked him something about the career path that he chosen while he was over there. And he said something to the effect of, well, I didn't have a choice. And when he said that, it hit my soul for two reasons. One, I had been in an abusive relationship prior to this. I was on a healing journey. But when he said that, I thought, man, how many times did I say that to myself when I was in that relationship? Like, I didn't have a choice. I didn't look for the choices. I just thought I made my bed, I had to lie in it. And then on the flip side of that coin was I didn't have a choice but to succeed. And that's where I believe his entrepreneurial spirit was passed on to me, because he also had that kind of like passion. He grew up as a farm kid, and then went into the army. He was also an airline mechanic, did lots of things in that world, and in the aircraft world, and then came back to being a farmer, owning a farm and really owning a business with that. Had a fertilizer business as well. And him owning, being a multi-entrepreneur, it was really my first taste. And this is life. This is what you do. You grow up and you own businesses. Like, sure, you can work for the man at some point, but then eventually you're going to own a business. So be thinking, whatever you're at in life, be thinking about what your next step is in order to own the business. And so for me, what I have found within my own coaching is that, and my own healing process, is that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And when the teacher is ready, the student appears. And so the clients that I work with are along that journey, that they're like, wow, I know that there's something better. There's something more meaningful for me out there in the world, and I just don't know what it is. And that's where a purpose component comes into play, is really being, yeah, let's share your story. Let's become the teacher at some point, because we all have obstacles that we've overcome. So let's talk about that. Let's share what you did. And then you become the teacher by sharing that. We learn things along the way and we gain knowledge, but it's not until you share it that it becomes wisdom. So that whole, I didn't have a choice. And I flipped that from the fear side of thinking of, I didn't have a choice, I made my bed, I had to lie in it, to I didn't have a choice but to succeed.
That is powerful in so many ways, Shay. Thank you for sharing. You give people opportunity to blossom, to embrace their shame, to literally have their light shine. So, shame lurks if you keep it quiet, but once you let it out, it's really profound, the courage and the vulnerability piece that will literally disintegrate it. So I appreciate you sharing your story. And thanks, Dad, for sharing his wisdom, his profound wisdom throughout. Let's talk about an aha moment here in leadership. Would you love to I'd love to hear one from you, that you have a memorable leadership aha moment.
Well, I think my aha moment that was really the most profound was that letting go of the attachment to goals that we often will have. So in my world, I was focused on, I have this coaching business. I help women transform their trauma into treasure. This is what I do, blah, blah, blah. And like I said, I got disrupted. I met someone who was a veteran. He said, have you considered working with veterans? And my whole world just kind of opened up when I said, and I'm a very prayerful, spiritual person. I'm like, okay, God, is this the path that you want me to go down? I meet all these veterans everywhere I go. So is this how you want to use me? And just by the next week being open and not having that closed mindedness to on the direct path of my goal, being open, I was like, okay, what happens? And then what happened next is I was having coffee with a new friend of mine, and I was telling her my experience, and she was working for the local business journal. And she said, I said, yeah, I keep meeting these veterans everywhere I go. And she's like, Shā, you know, I'm a veteran, right? And I was like, "Oh, if I had, I forgotten that story. Yes. Yes. And she's like, and we're having a combination meeting with the business journal and the VFW. I would love to have you as a guest. I'm like, okay, great. So I go, I sit in the audience, and they have a panel about talking to corporate America, you know, VPs and things like that, about hiring veterans and how to go about it and that type of thing. And I'm not going to call him out by name, but it was definitely a car company, we'll put it that way, that vice president was there, and he was talking about, oh, veterans are so great to work with. You just have to give them a purpose and move on, and they'll be fine. And that was my major aha moment, like, boom, like, wait, what? Give them a purpose? They've been given a purpose their whole career. So like, oh, now it's time to help them find a purpose. And then I went, well, what if this program, this Spark Your Alpha program, is really not just for women, but it's for military when they go back to civilian life, to really give them skills and tools to help them find their purpose and to tap in who they were really meant to be on this planet. What if that's what this is? And so after the panel and everything was over, I went and talked to my friend, and I was sharing with her, and she was like, oh my gosh, that's a really profound. And I said, so yeah, is there something that the military, the government is doing to really help the military find that purpose before they leave in the transition program? Did you have anything like that? And she was like, absolutely not. No, you know, most programs are really about finding a being employed, whatever that looks like, right? Just employed. And she's like, you might want to talk with the VFW, the head of the VFW. And I'm like, okay, well, he already left. In my mind, I thought, oh, he already left. Well, as I was walking up the stairs of this auditorium, well, there he is. I ran into him, and I'm like, hey, I'm Shā Sparks, blah, blah, blah. I have this program that's really to help people in the military find their purpose. Is there anything that at the government level that they are helping do that? And he was like, that's a really great question. I don't know the answer to that. And I'm like, he's like, get back in touch with me, and, you know, we can talk about this. I'm like, okay. And, you know, I'm not a naive person. And when I reached out, and he was like, oh, I'm going on vacation, let me get back with you. You know, I'm pretty much like, got it. You don't really know who to direct me to. You're just buying some time. Okay. Well, it just so happened that at the time, so my career that I retired from, I was a hairstylist for 29 years, and I'm only 25. I don't really know how all that works with math, but I went back to the salon, and I was talking to one of my hair clients, and she was telling her that story, and she was like, well, Shā, you just need to reach out to Congresswoman so and so. We go to church with her, and she does all kinds of things with the veterans. So you might want to just email her. And I went, just email a congressperson? Like, I can do that? She's like, yeah, just Google it and find out. And I was like, okay. Well, I also, at that time in my life, I lived part-time in DC. And so I thought, well, that would be great if I could maybe just go to her office while I'm in DC next week. And so this was on a Thursday. So I emailed their office. They got back to me and said, she is, you know, not in the office, but we can connect you to her defense fellow. The following Monday, he emails me and said, I have Wednesday or Thursday available. And so there I am a week later, after this aha moment, find myself on Capitol Hill in a congresswoman's office, literally across from the Capitol. Bill Nye, the science guy, is filming an episode right outside on the steps of this office building. And I'm about to walk into this congresswoman's office to have a meeting with the defense fellow, which is about the size of a glorified closet. And I'm like, how did I get here? And if I had been so focused on where I thought I was going to be going in working with women to get their voice back out of traumatic relationships, I wouldn't have gotten here. I wouldn't have followed those doors that were opening. I wouldn't have taken advantage of those opportunities that literally were flying open for me to walk through. and for me to be curious and go on this exploration journey and just be like, what is in here that I need to learn? Who do I need to connect with? And then what is my next step? And that's literally the journey I have been on ever since then for the past, that's 4 years. And I just am willing to walk through those doors that open fearlessly and ask those questions with curious exploration. Like, I really don't know why I'm here, but I know I'm here for a reason. I know I'm here to meet someone. I know I'm here to connect with someone. As Enrique can tell you, I am a huge connector. I connect people all the time. So that's one of my favorite things to do. So maybe the information I am learning is not for me. Maybe it's for me to pass on to someone else. And I am just literally the connector. Or it could be something so profound, an experience so completely out of my comfort zone that whenever we're out of our comfort zone, you mentioned about being vulnerable, we are in a vulnerable state. And when we do that, then that we gain confidence. So maybe doing all of that and just following those open doors is really about me just gaining confidence in what I do and what I talk about, and being able to ask the hard questions of, what is the government doing to help the military when they go back to civilian life to find their purpose? And even though he didn't have an answer, and even though he said the same thing, that's a really great question. Let's keep this conversation going. It allows me to go, I'm on to something here, and might not have an answer, and they might not have an answer. But yeah, let's keep that conversation going. Let's see where it takes us. Let's see where that door opens us up to.
Well, the true Alice in Wonderland here, I tell you. And I love your approach and not being afraid of change, things that maybe you had in mind that were supposed to be, and you're seeing the clues pile up and saying, hold up now, maybe this is something different. And I
Yeah.
love that curiosity about you. And it definitely is a testament of how you deal with times of change. But let's talk about challenges, because, I know that sometimes you try to open the door and it's closed shut. I mean, from both sides. So how do you deal with times of challenge?
Mm. So what first comes to mind is that the word no means next opportunity. Challenges are challenging for a reason, right? And it's to refine us. It's like iron sharpens iron. We're being refined on maybe our approach. We're being refined on maybe our mindset. We're being refined on our own limited beliefs of, okay, if that's not what I'm supposed to do, maybe it's something else. I have been on this journey, I call it curious exploration journey, for many years, just really trying to be vulnerable and learn that, get out of my comfort zone lesson of, gaining confidence. And when I have an idea and I go down that rabbit hole of let's figure out this idea and make it into a business and make $1 million in the next 90 days, let's do that. And it doesn't work. And, I talk to people and they're like, yeah, that's not really a viable product, or yeah, someone else is doing it, or, something to that thing, which in the beginning, it really excites me. And then as we go along the process, it's like, how attached am I to this? Can I release it and cut my losses, so to speak, cut the energy losses, the effort, the time that I spent on it, and look at the lessons that I learned from it, the connections that I made from it, the confidence that I gained from it, and then move forward onto a different path. Because I think, again, it goes back to these goals. I know you guys have seen the graphic where it's like, what I thought the way to success was up. And really the way to success is this curve and that. And sometimes we backtrack and sometimes we dig deeper. And then, we got to go sideways. And there's all these different routes. And, every time I hit a wall and I'm like beating myself up because, I don't just hit the wall. I beat my head against the wall. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I was so stupid. I would think I could do this. And I have to remind myself, like, I'm not stupid. I didn't know. We don't know what we don't know. And so the question that I asked myself when I got out of the abusive relationship that really shifted most everything for me was, what is it that I don't know that I need to know in order to move forward?
Curious exploration is definitely important here. I feel like I'm walking on the beach hearing your podcast in my ears, looking at the sunrise, drinking the coffee, as Enrique pointed out, having grace about myself. But yes, people, take it easy, take it slow, find your own identity, your own purpose. This is a great individual that can help you get there and write your story, And if you want to get a hold of Shā, guess what? Or Sparks of Fire International. Folks, this is the time you get to know how. Shā, please share, how can we do that?
Absolutely. You can email me at Shā, that's HEYSHA at ShāSparks.com. And you can let me know that you heard me on this amazing, incredible podcast. I would love to connect with you. But you can also check out all of my social medias. I'm at ShāSparks.com. You can send me a DM on any of those. And my website is ShāSparks.com. And my podcast is The Power of Investing in People. And you'll have to check out Enrique's interview on there as well. And yeah, I'm always open to having a conversation because, again, you just never know where that conversation is going to go.
Absolutely. And folks, we're going to have that as part of the show notes and video so that you can get a hold of Shā. It has been such a pleasure to listen to you explain all that trajectory of life and where it has led you. Folks, if you want to reach the Leadership Void at gmail.com is where you'll send that correspondence if you'd like for us to cover any specific leadership topic, or maybe you have a guest that you would like to see featured on the show. We would love to hear about it through those means, and Vince and I will curate those emails and get things happening.
Lastly, guess what? We're going to definitely close out this beautiful month of Women's History Month with Shā. And thanks to our wonderful sponsors, we have VEI, Triple Nickel, and FAVOB. Thank you for everything they do to support our endeavors. But again, this is all about Shā. It's all about the spark, and it's all about her. So thank you, Shā, for being on our show.
Thank you for having me. It was just a joy.